At number 10, hidden. So djinn, sometimes spelled with a D at the beginning of the word, well, they're supernatural and scary creatures. They were made by God, just like humans, and there is an air of mystery surrounding the entire world of the djinn, who they are, what they do. And as a matter of fact, the literal meaning of the Arabic word djinn, it means hidden or concealed. So not just that they are hidden and can't be seen with the naked eye, but things about them like their abilities, how they live, where they are, etc. are still a mystery. Although there is some information about what life is like for a djinn, a lot of it is still mystery. They literally could be anywhere, doing anything. What was that? Was that a djinn? Okay, I just have to catch my breath there. Moving on to number 9, djinn, they live for a long time. So we established that djinns, they live in the world and they're concealed from our eyes, and they live in a different dimension, if you want to call it that, and they also do follow a different timeline. And what do I mean by that? I mean, like, according to my research, the djinn, unlike humans, they can live for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, perhaps even millions of years at this point. So like, this means that they would most likely be smarter than us, and you know, they would have a lot of time to accumulate knowledge and life experiences. Like we as humans, for instance, would live, let's say, about 80 years or so, and we think we're smart. But imagine living thousands of years, having thousands of years of knowledge in your brain. Yeah, would definitely make the djinn a very scary opponent. I'll talk more about that later on in this video though, so keep on watching. But for number 8, there are 3 main types of djinn. They take many different shapes and forms, and they have other names and types. And one source, a hadith narrated by Ibn Masud, it said that there are 3 main types of djinn: those who fly and those who appear in the form of dogs and snakes. And the 3rd kind is one that flies. So they're full of surprises, right? And I think what makes this so scary is that, you know, we as humans, there's like one type, and we can't really fly without the help of technology, but there's no escaping a djinn. So if you even fly with an airplane, the djinn can fly and get you. If you try to avoid a djinn, well, there's nowhere that you can run and go, because they can take on the form of an animal, let's say, and you may just run into it and you don't even know that's a djinn. That is scary. Well, number 7 brings us the Kareen. So you guys know that our phones listen to us, right? Like you could be talking about buying a new car with a friend, and all of a sudden, boom, you're on Facebook or Instagram and you see ads about cars and deals for new cars and all of that, and you're thinking like, oh wow, this is interesting. Also, our phones track our location. But still, in many ways, we can still protect our privacy from companies and the government and from other people. Just turn off the phone, or, you know, don't use one. But there's actually no privacy at all when it comes to a type of djinn called Kareen. These guys are on another level. Kareen is a type of evil djinn that stays with a human being all the time. They're literally like assigned to humans, and they know each and everything that a person does. And as if that wasn't bad enough, they encourage you to do bad things. So not only are they literally spying on you, but they have the audacity to make your life worse by, you know, trying to instigate you and doing bad stuff. Number 6 brings us djinns being powerful. So they're physically strong and capable of moving heavy objects almost instantaneously from one place to another. And in some cases, djinn powers, they can be controlled much like humans, and the person who is controlling the djinn's power, well, they can use them for various different beneficial reasons. Like one example is King Solomon, according to Islamic texts, who made the djinn build the Masjid al-Aqsa, also known as the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They can travel large distances quickly, and of course they can fly through the air like I mentioned earlier. But outside of being physically strong and able to have external influences on humans, djinns also have the power to penetrate a person's subconsciousness, and they can almost force humans to do things and feel experiences. This type of phenomenon is called djinn possession. Halfway in at number 5, Djinn are very crafty. I touched on this at the beginning of the video, but Djinns are creatures with great intelligence. Like, they live forever, they're accumulating a lot of information and learning a lot. So they can lie, they can give false information, they can even play tricks on people. So good luck trying to outsmart a Djinn. In many cases, it would be like a toddler competing with a 30-year-old scientist on a chemistry exam. Like, there is no match when it comes to the humans and the Djinn's intellect when you put them side by side. It takes a lot of spiritual strength and knowledge and patience to control a Djinn, and how to control a Djinn still remains a very tricky question, because many people have actually tried to control Djinns, but they were not successful, and in some cases they lost their mental health and even lost their lives in the process. So trying to control a Djinn is definitely something that's not recommended. Number 4 brings us Ifrit. Ifrit, they are sometimes in different cultures worshipped as gods, but they're not a god. Ifrit is just one type of powerful and evil Djinn. The Ifrit is recognized as the spirit of the dead people, and especially in European culture, Ifrit is mostly living underground, so they may marry each other and they have their own societies and everything. And what's also pretty scary is that they can marry humans as well. There are many popular tales that depict an enormous winged creature of smoke, whether in the male form or female form, but that's the typical depiction of an Ifrit Djinn. While ordinary weapons and forces have no power over them, it's believed that they are actually susceptible to magic, which humans can use to kill them or even capture them. But again, yeah, this is an Ifrit we're talking about. The odds of capturing one and controlling one, very slim. Number 3, let's talk about mental health when it comes to Djinn. Some Muslim people believe that Djinn can be the cause of mental health problems, and also Djinn can be the source of having people see visions and hearing voices, as well as other undesired influences. Researchers in the Netherlands have found that up to 80% of Islamic people with a diagnosis of psychosis consider to be the result of a Djinn. Now, Western medical practitioners, they often lack information about Islamic culture and religious beliefs. So of course that can make Muslims reluctant to seek any sort of medical advice when it comes to matters like this. But there is some interesting research that suggests that in some Muslim communities, medication and talking therapy for distressing voices is most effective when combined with traditional Islamic methods used to eliminate Djinn influence on somebody. The scary fact at number 2 is that Djinn target kids. This one is taken from an Islamic source, specifically the Hadith Sunan Abi Dawud 3733. And it says, "Gather your children when darkness spreads, or in the evening, for the Djinn are abroad, and seize them." So this can be viewed as a literal seizing or a spiritual seizing. Either way, keep your eye on the kids at nighttime because the Djinn are out to get them. And we end this episode off at number 1, the Djinn hold grudges. Djinn are not all evil. According to the 1001 Nights, in some of its tales, Djinn actually grant wishes to people, and they also help people who are in need. But be careful though, not all Djinn are so kind. In the tale of the merchant and the Jinni, for example, a merchant is face to face with a powerful and evil Djinn who wants to take his life because the merchant accidentally tossed a pit of a date and it hit and killed the Djinn's invisible son. While invisible to the merchant, it was an accident, right? So although the merchant is able to remain alive, others may not have been so lucky. So be careful what you throw away. It just might harm a Djinn unsuspectingly and leading to a very scary outcome. All right, so let's start off with number 10. Here we have personality disorders. So when a person has changing personality disorders all the times, and if these episodes are very, very sudden, this could be a sign. However, there are several medical disorders that affect a person's mental state, but this definitely is a sign that somebody would be possessed by a djinn. Now, number 9, not just their mental state changing, but also their facial structure actually physically changing. When a person is possessed by a djinn, you can really see that their facial features will change. They'll start twisting and contorting in different ways, so much that the person is not necessarily recognizable and may look like a completely different person at times. Now, moving on to number 8, their voice changing. So people's voices changing, maybe a man could start sounding more like a female or a child, or a woman could start sounding like a man, or sometimes people even growl like beasts, but you'll hear a change in their voice, like a drastic change, and that is a sign of djinn possession. Now, moving on to number 7, there's sudden displays of various different emotions. Now, a possessed person will suddenly start to laugh or cry or just get really angry and upset. And this can happen at some of the most inappropriate times, like laughing at a funeral or getting angry at somebody that just smiled at them. Really, the display of emotion will just happen at times where you can't justify that sort of behavior. So if you see that happening, or if you experience that yourself, could be djinn possession. Moving on to number 6, here we look at sensations in the body. Now, let me break it down for you a little bit. The person that's possessed would complain about sensations that are felt all over the body, like ants crawling up and down the insides of their body or outsides of their body, the temperature of their body increasing, they feel like they're burning up, sometimes they feel really cold, feeling like there's something in their stomach moving around. Also, sometimes you might find that they're able to just speak completely different languages without learning those languages. Now, number 5, halfway in, we look at nightmares. Okay, so a person who is supposedly possessed by a djinn, they're going to experience a lot of horrifying nightmares. And oftentimes these nightmares are completely repetitive. They can also hallucinate and sleepwalk, and those are just some symptoms of djinn possession. Now, next up, we have sleep paralysis at number 4. These people will experience sleep paralysis and feel like actually something is holding them down. They may feel like their throat is being gripped or their mouth is being bound, or sometimes they may feel a physical heavy weight on their chest and they try to move while they sleep, but they just can't. Or at times, sleep paralysis can stop them from screaming for help. But yeah, it's definitely a telltale sign that they are possessed by a djinn. Now, number 3 brings us to a person becoming unhygienic and isolated. The person who always maintained a standard of hygiene and is always clean and well groomed, and then all of a sudden they just switch up. Yeah, that could be a sign of djinn possession. Also, you'll find people who are possessed by djinns, they like to stay in places of filth and be completely isolated, and he or she may start to like dirty surroundings. Yeah. All right, moving on to number 2. A big increase in physical strength. Now, this is a big one here. The person who is possessed may have superhuman strength when they are under djinn possession. They can lift up things, very heavy things like cars, and the objects that they lift up are generally a lot heavier than one person alone can actually lift up. And it's said that in some cases, when people are lifting up these heavy objects, they often don't even remember that they did that once the spell of possession breaks. And finally, at number 1, we have depression and hopelessness. Now, the jinn, the evil ones, their aim, according to Islam, is to attack a Muslim's belief system and fill them with hopelessness and depression and start letting them do haram, forbidden things that go against their religion. And this can come as a great wave and happen repeatedly over a period of time. Now, a Muslim is advised to fully put their faith in God, but when a person's at their lowest point, that's when the jinn really push depression and hopelessness and extreme sadness, which we know definitely can lead to other unfortunate outcomes. At number 10, we have regional possession. This is a type of possession that can be very alarming and scary. It occurs as a seizure in your sleep when you can't really move or speak, and it happens so quick that it could be just seconds or minutes. And in most cases, if not at all, the jinn does this from the outside. Usually it's a flying type of djinn. Yeah, very scary. Now, moving on to number 9, we have projectory possession. This is a type of possession that a djinn takes possession of a person for a specific time period. It could be for hours during the day or night, then leaves the body and comes back the next day or the next week or the next month or the next year. And in some very rare cases, it doesn't come back at all. And the djinn, when it leaves the body, it can feel like a sensation similar to a sudden shaking or shivering in the legs, or it can feel like a big burst of air leaving your mouth. The possession type at number 8 is accompanying possession. The djinn permanently takes possession of one part of the body, like the leg, even the uterus or the spine of a person, or it can take possession of the entire body, day and night, whether you're sleeping or awake. It's almost like it becomes a part of your physical body completely. Number 7 brings us external possession. Now, external possession is a type of djinn possession where the djinn accompanies a person full-time or part-time. Now, the djinn has the ability to take the form of another human being or animal that can physically touch a person. Or the djinn can do things like sit on a person's back or press down on their chest. They also even whisper into a person's ear. Now, as mentioned, they do take on the form of animals, but this also goes to insects. They can take on those forms. They can become flies as well. And this one is particularly scary because in some cases, the djinns can bruise you or rip your clothing through external possession. The djinn can also take the form of a beautiful woman or a man to have intimate relations with their target. Moving on now to number 6, this is transistus possession. This is a type of a possession where more than one person is haunted simultaneously by a djinn. And usually it happens to people who have close relationships to each other. This is why it's called transistus, meaning to pass over or crossing through. And it could be one or more djinn that can haunt a group or family or team of some sort in this type of possession. Moving on now to number 5, we have imaginary possession. Yeah, this is a type of delusion, and it's said to be the most common type of djinn possession, surprisingly. Like, for instance, imaginary epilepsy is a thing which is a result of interacting with those who are actually possessed, then starting to imagine that you yourself have those same exact symptoms, or maybe an exorcist or spiritual healer suggests to you that you are afflicted by a djinn. And it all starts with an idea, then it becomes a belief that you're possessed, and then you start acting as if you're possessed. Now, the next type of possession at number 4, false pretense. It's actually similar to imaginary possession that I just mentioned, but this time the person is conscious of what they're doing. Some people who do this, they go back and forth to their spiritual healers or exorcists with their own agenda in mind. They have their own goals. They continue to attend healing sessions, and they scream and they shout and they say that they're here for whatever reason. They're experiencing this, and really they're actually not possessed or afflicted by a djinn in any way at all. All of this is to seek attention from others or to have an excuse for their bad behavior. So yeah, that one is not really a type of possession, but you get what I mean. Now, number 3 is the presence of waswasa. Now, this means suggestions and whispering, and it is an overwhelming form of possession that is very stressful for a person. The djinn haunts a person, making them cry and laugh and become really, really angry without any explanation, and this happens at random times. This type of possession of the djinn could last for hours or days or for the whole lifespan of a person, and this causes severe anxiety and can even cause obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD. So possession type at number 2 is brain influence. The djinn uses a person's brain to control the human senses, to control the nervous system, control the muscles. So yeah, this one is strictly to do with the brain and how the brain operates. But the possession type at number 1, also pretty similar to brain influence, well, we have mind influence. And this is a type of possession that the jinn doesn't actually possess the physical body or the nervous system or the brain or anything like that. This is strictly mental. So images can flash in a person's mind, or scenes of chilling events can be seen as if they are watching a movie. But nothing physical actually happens. It's just up in the mind. So yeah, it makes you wonder when all those people in your life have said that, hey, they've heard voices, maybe they've seen something, and you may have labeled it as them going crazy, but yeah, they could have been possessed by a jinn. Starting at number 10, did you know that there's a belief that there are several types of jinn, not just jinn as a blanket term? No, there are different types of jinn, like some that can fly, others that can shapeshift. Although it is believed by Muslims that those that can shapeshift in human form cannot appear as the Prophet Muhammad. And over in the Hadith, it supports this belief. There's a passage that says there are 3 types of jinn. One type that fly about through the air all the time, another type that appear as snakes and dogs, and an earthbound type which resides in one place or wanders about. Also, there is a belief that jinns are assigned to humans. It's believed that every single human being has a jinn assigned to them, specifically a kind of jinn called a qareen, or jinn comrade, and this type of jinn will encourage people to actually do evil. Having lived with a human being since the time of birth, these jinn are said to know absolutely everything about a particular person, and that means that anyone that's able to communicate with the jinn, like a psychic for example, could actually gain access to secrets about people, and that person may be like, how did you know? That psychic may have been talking to a jinn. Now, there's a passage in the Hadith that says, every one of you has been assigned a companion from the jinn. There are all sorts of beliefs about that. I'm not going to get into that right now because we have so much more to go through. We're talking about the belief that jinn have free will. So, in Islam, angels were created to obey Allah completely. They don't have free will to disobey Him. Unlike the jinn, Muslims believe that Allah gave the jinn free will to obey or disobey Him like human beings. So whoever of the jinn decides to believe in Allah, or who desires to disbelieve in Allah and do evil things, they can do so. And the majority of jinn are said to be unbelievers. In fact, the number of unbelievers that are of the jinn outnumber the unbelievers among humans. Jinn are also similar to human beings. They are believed to resemble humans in the sense that they eat and drink just like us, as well as they have children and they grow old and die. And also they're going to be subject to the judgment of God. So they will either be sent to heaven or hell according to their deeds and according to the mercy of Allah. Jinn can also get really annoyed and upset though if you secretly disturb them or hurt one of their loved ones, even if you're completely unaware that you did so. The next scary belief we're looking at is jinn possession, and this is probably one of the scariest beliefs associated with jinn. Yeah, jinns are believed to be able to possess human beings. There are numerous reasons as to why a jinn would even possess somebody in the first place, from just being straight up bored and wanting something to do, to being some sort of punishment for someone's own carelessness in committing evil deeds. But oftentimes though, people who are possessed by jinn may not appear in the pain and the torment like we see in the feature films or even on TV shows. However, individuals simply that may just get straight up angry or completely moody or feel like they're forced to do certain things without being able to stop are also telltale signs that they could be possessed by jinn. So according to that belief, I'm not saying go out on a witch hunt and be like, oh my god, that person got super angry real quick, he's possessed. Nah. I'm just sharing the beliefs that exist out there. Alright, so at number 5, this belief is that jinns live in different places. And let me break it down. Jinn apparently they thrive in places like deserts, as well as, you know, certain districts like the mountainous Chitral district in Pakistan. And also it's believed that they live in and around a sinkhole in the wastelands outside of Kardo, Somalia. Other places that jinn like to live in are caves and crossroads, as well as garbage dumps. heavens, and also large bodies of water, and it's believed that the jinn also live in the upper atmosphere, those that can fly. Graveyards are another place that jinn live, and they can even be found in bathrooms. The belief at number 4 involves the hatif. Now, the hatif is a type of jinn, and it's just really a disembodied voice, and there's no physical form to this type of jinn. The hatif is a jinn who they imitate human voices. So if it sounds like you're speaking to someone and you hear them answer back, it may not necessarily be that person responding to you. It could just be the jinn imitating their voice. Jinns are known to be pranksters and play tricks on people like this, so it isn't uncommon to find stories like this in Islamic circles. Let's talk about the creation of the jinn next. Jinn were created from smokeless fire. Yeah, that is very interesting, and it's a lot different than the earth that human beings are made from, and even the light that angels are made from, according to Islam. Now, in the Quran, it does support this belief, and it says that, "And the jinn we had created before from smokeless, scorching fire, penetrating through the skin." That's found specifically in Surah 15 verses 27. Number 2 brings us the belief in the devil. Now, Iblis in Islam is the personal name of the devil, and he's believed to also be a jinn. At the time of creating human beings, God had ordered all the angels to bow down before Adam, but Iblis refused, and he said that no, he was better, he was created from fire, but humans were made from dirt and clay. So for disobeying this direct command from God, God threw Iblis out of heaven. At one point, he was allowed to dwell in the heavens, but his punishment was postponed until Judgment Day. Now, over in Surah 18 verses 50 in the Quran, it says, "And remember when we said to the angels, prostrate to Adam, so they prostrated except Iblis. He was one of the jinn. He disobeyed the command of his Lord." But what's also scary about this is that since Iblis looks to cause destruction and lead people to do evil things in the world, he can sometimes appear in human form to recruit people to work on his side. The final scary belief about jinn that I'm going to share in this episode involves the djinn. Now, the djinn are a type of jinn that are shapeshifters as well, but these ones, they live in the desert, and they often take the forms of whirlwinds, as well as it's said that they even take on the form of white camels. They have the power to hide or reveal bodies of water in the desert, and this all just depends on whether they like you or not. Throughout history, though, it is said that the Djinn have protected certain armies that they deem to be holy and righteous, and they actually like them, while others, they just completely stop them because they feel like, hey, you're not good people, so we're gonna interfere with what you're trying to do. So you see, it's surprising that their influence could literally have affected the course of history according to this belief.